Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining myself. I'm Karen, and this is Gary to my side here. We have got some more fantastic guests for you coming up. Now, with these, you all right, Gary, by the way? You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Fantastic. Enjoying every minute of it. Really enjoying it. Really excited.
Now, we have got some fantastic guests for you. Now, these guys are completely different to everything else you've probably seen so far. So we wanted to bring you two lovely gentlemen from the acting world rather than the paranormal investigations world. So we wanted to bring you something different and get their point of view on producing these fantastic films that we get to watch. So no further ado, I'm going to bring on Robert and I'm going to bring on Shane. Hello.
Hello.
Nice Hi, how's it going?
Great to have you along.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
And I want to thank you both for taking part in our charity festival weekend. It's very much appreciated, you know, and it means a lot to us, all of you out there, all the people watching, and all of you that are taking part and giving us your time to take part in this event for us and raise some fantastic funds for mental health and suicide awareness. So, firstly, I want to go to you, Shane. Where did all the acting side of things, where did it all start for you?
Well, I started doing photography, and since I was pretty much solo on everything, I actually used myself as a model most of the time. In fact, I, interestingly enough, have some photographs that I took that I tried to make look like a alien abduction. And so I did all of this stuff by setting up the camera on a tripod and just trial and error and just doing it over and over again. So eventually that evolved into doing film related stuff. And so again, I was the person that I was shooting because I only had access to so much. And so I was the actor, and that's really strange for me because I consider myself an introvert, and so I'm not super outgoing, and so being in front of the camera or being the center of the attention at all is just kind of weird for me. But you know, I had to do what I had to do to create stuff. Then I was at home and I heard a horror festival basically did a challenge for people to create a promo with a certain theme. And as soon as I heard it, I had an idea for what I wanted to do. And I was like, oh man, I have to do this. So I got a bunch of people together and I made this promo and I sent it in. And it was literally one of the most fun things that I had ever done. And they talk about being bitten by the film bug. And that's kind of what it is. It's like you do something, it's like, oh man, I can't believe that I've not been doing this. And so I've been pretty much pursuing that ever since. And with regards to the acting thing, even though that's not my main thing. I personally like to do camera work and things like that. Again, for me to learn what I wanted to learn, I needed to see how people did it. And the easiest way for me to do that was to be on set as an actor or background or whatever, just to be on set to see people making movies. So I kind of got a really good around feel about what happened. And so that's kind of how it started for me. And I've been knocking around, you know, like I think Robert has got a lot of like really deep experience, like theater experience and stuff like that. And me, I really just kind of had to try to figure it out step by step to kind of get to where I am. I don't really have any specific like schooling or background that came from work. Like I learned stuff and then I started getting work and I started getting more work and then it turned into being involved in feature films, which I think is like amazing. It's awesome.
Oh, I'd love to do some. Well, I don't know. I say I'd love to do something like that. I think for me, it'd be more like the production side. I do all these festivals and stuff, but that's a little bit different in these interviews. But I don't like being in front of the camera. I'm not really one for that at all. But I'd love to be part of some type of production just to see how it all gets put together. So Shane was saying, Robert, that for you, it's complete, a little bit different how you came into all of this. And
yes, it was quite some time ago. It's really strange. I kind of consider myself on the shy side. I'm kind of quiet and stuff. And I think that what I liked about acting is like when you're a kid, you're pretending. So what I like about acting is I'm pretending I'm someone else. I'm not myself. And that's what I like about it. I started out in stage, as Shane had mentioned. I started out in the theater, a theater company here in Southern California called South Coast Repertory Theater. That's where I got my start. So my very first time I ever got paid as an actor was at a theater, and I was with that theater company for a couple of years, and then I went down to San Diego and worked at an Old Globe Theater in San Diego, and did a tour for them and did a little bit of work for them, and this was back in the early '80s, and then. No,
could have been in the early 80s, must have been the late 80s.
Yeah, early 80s.
Couldn't have been that long ago.
That's how long ago that was. And then after that, the way it works, you're trying to get into your unions, right? So the stage union, as you know, is the equity, or at least it here in the States, the equity is the stage union. And back then, once you've had your whatever union card you've had, after you've had it for a year, you can go to the next union, with the Screen Actors Guild, and actually join. And that's how I got into the Screen Actors Guild. And then I started auditioning for commercials and television roles and that type of thing. I think my heyday as far as TV and what they used to call movies of the week was probably back in the 90s, mid 90s is when I did most of my work. I would say 90s and in the 2000s I did some stuff. But I've had recurring roles on television shows, and I really do love the stage, though. I really miss the stage. I haven't done a play in quite a few years, but I've had recurring roles. There was a show called Space Above and Beyond. It was on the Fox channel. We're talking years ago. I've had a recurring role on the Nickelodeon channel, a show called The Journey of Alan Strange, and that was a different thing. That was an alien type of thing where this kid comes to Earth. And then he gets befriended by these high school kids, and they figure out what he is, and they take him home, and then they hide him up in the attic. They have a single dad, and they hide him up in the attic to try and help him get back to where he's from. And so he follows them to school one day, and he's asking them, well, what is school? And so he wants to enroll in school. So he goes there, and they say, well, you need your dad. And he goes, well, what's a dad? So now they're walking home from school, and they pass this storefront. It's like a little, shopping area. And my character, I'm in the window as a mannequin in a tennis outfit. So this alien kid comes in, zaps me, and brings me to life to be his dad.
Jimmy Connors.
Right. So I'm thinking more Arthur Ashe. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm in this tennis outfit with a racket, and they bring me back and put me up in the attic. So the thing is, he zaps me, brings me to life, but my power runs out. So I'll be in the attic. They kept me in the attic as a mannequin, and whenever they needed a parent to do something the other parent would do for the kids, they'd come and bring me to life, and then I would, I'd come and be the dad. But, so that was a lot of fun, and that lasted for about 3 seasons. And then I've done a lot of, usually I play cops and detective. Those are the type of typecast roles that I have gotten over the years. And that's what happened with the Crumbs. I ended up playing a sheriff in the Crumbs, which just came out a few months ago, and we're real excited. It seems to be doing really well. Really excited about it.
That's excellent as well. I was chuckling away to myself when Shane was saying about recreating the alien side of things as well. Did that actually get out as like part of Is It Real, Isn't It Real? Was it on one of them shows where people trying to work out if it was fake or not fake of that when you done the little clip on that as well? Did that actually get out there?
You're asking Shane, right?
Yeah, I'm asking Shane. Yeah, I was just touching back on that. Then I'll come back in. I thought that was quite interesting. So when I was seeing that, I was feeling like, are you the man that's for the Loch Ness monster? Are you responsible for creating that as well? That photograph.
So no. So I mean, I wasn't. I was doing it just as photography, so I never tried to present it as anything other than that. I just kind of stuck it out there. And I think I mentioned that I had we've been playing with photography, but it's interesting that you say that because there was one video that I put up on YouTube a long time ago. And essentially all I was doing was, and I was using a phone, which waves back, like that's like weird to think that you're taking photos on a phone because they were not really good with doing stuff like that. Yeah. But they've come a long way so fast. And I was trying to get a stop action photo of the sunset. And while I was taking it, I think what happened was a bug got into the frame and was flying around in front of the camera. And what that resulted in is what looked like a video because it was stop action, right? So you kind of got individual frames that are taken over time. But each time the flash was bursting out and hitting this bug, and it made it look like it was a light. And so it looked like a light was flying around in the sky in front of the camera, and I posted that up, and it did end up getting a lot of views, with people potentially thinking it could be a UFO. So that it's interesting you mentioned that because I did have at least some kind of experience with that.
So you were the creator of that. That's fantastic. But we can touch on, obviously, we do a lot of debunking in our field as well. So that's great that you're open and honest in that. But that's how things can run as well with just posting something on YouTube and then it escalates as well. Just amazing. Robert, I was just going to touch on with yourself. I actually think I've seen Above and Beyond when you're running through that as well now. So I do remember.
Above and Beyond, you think you've seen that years ago?
Yeah, and that's why I was holding on to them two things. So it was just chuckling away to myself, really, to be honest with you. But I do that type of stuff is like my type of field where you've got to put that extra thought into these type of films and characters as well. Yeah.
On that one, I played a communications officer. So we're on a spaceship, and I was kind of the, I would turn back to the captain and say, "Oh, this is what we're seeing, Captain, this and this and that, and I would take orders and that type of thing." But I played a communications officer on that show, and that lasted for a few seasons as well. We're talking back in the 90s or somewhere back there.
Yeah. I'm looking this up. I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna watch it now.
I don't even know. I never looked that kind of stuff up. I don't even know if it's available. But I'll tell you.
Everything's available on YouTube or somewhere these days.
I'm sure it is. I never look for it, but every once in a while, I know it's out there, or some of the things that I've done are out there, because I'll get a residual check. Right? It'll come out of nowhere, and I just got one. Like yesterday, and we're talking something that was shot over 20 years ago. Let me tell you my grand total of my check that came in the mail yesterday. I made $6.39.
Wow. And that was for over 20 years ago. So, every dollar counts.
Yeah, it ran.
That's when you know you've made it, though, is when you just start getting money coming in the mail from who knows what,
Right? $6.39. Look, I guess I'm having a six-pack tonight.
Hey, man, it's just money showing up at your door, man. That's cool.
Right, my wife and I used to call that good money. Like, because you'd be waiting for a check to show up and go, "Hey, we got some good money here." It just showed up in the mail. But there's pretty small checks nowadays.
Also, as well, I was having a little chuckle to myself when Shane mentioned about the acting side of it as well and filming. Is there anything that you've been drawn to around props and thought, "Oh, that would look nice"? Yeah, I don't mean taking them. What I mean is, have you seen anything that's really took your eye on scene or on set that you've gone, ooh, I've got a nice little study that'll look nice on. Are you drawn to any little things like that as well? That was coming to me before.
They're not going to admit it.
No, you don't have to admit it.
Yeah, of course. There are times, but you never seriously think about it unless you could, if you're a star of the show or the movie, you can actually pull that off and just ask for it. But when you're one of the supporting players, you just keep your mouth shut and I think
I'm seeing like Star Wars, Robert, where you've got the little side props and stuff like that as well. So I'm getting a little bit over enthusiastic with the Star Wars side of it. But in 20 years' time, it's like, look what I've got from I picked the pen up or anything like that.
Just that's another weird thing. So I mean, like, I've got a roll of cash right here. So this roll of cash is actually from a film that is going to be showing at Sundance this year called First Date. And so it's basically drug money. And then, so...
it's basically just...
I've opened a can of worms here now, haven't I?
Oh,
look at it.
Once you see the Crumbs, this is Benjamin's watch, his pocket watch.
That's awesome.
So
yeah.
this was mine before I came to set, and I just gave it to Dr. Benjamin because I thought that he should have a timepiece, because part of that film relates to their extending their lives. So there's time kind of has a part in the movie, and so I thought it'd be cool if he had a pocket watch that kind of showed that connection.
And this is how all them little trinkets tie in with them memories as well, is where I was coming from.
Yeah,
exactly. So I was in a fan film as well, and so this is a patch that I got from the fan film. That was called Resident Evil Siren Song. So I love that stuff, the little mementos and things like that. And going forward, I do want to collect more stuff from films. I've got I don't know if you know this, Robert, but I also have the rug from the ceremony room as well.
Oh, do you? No,
yeah.
I didn't know. Now, also in the Crumbs, I used a weapon. And was that your weapon that I used? Was it your weapon, Craig? I mean,
yeah. Sorry. So it was from Abstractor Studios that I'm also involved with. Yeah. So I mean, I've been involved in doing props as well. So, and that kind of started with this film. I met a guy who was doing a lot of he had basically a lot of prop weapons, and I was like, well, geez, man, like and it started off as just airsoft, but they look real. They look like real guns, and so they're like prop weapons. And so I wanted to be more involved in doing film with those things, and so I actually launched a group that was called NorCal Expendables, which is a local group, which was just for the purpose of basically using weaponry on screen and being tactical people. And so in this film, I play basically a training officer for a tactical police squad that is in the Resident Evil series called the Raccoon City Police Department.
Wow. You guys have you've done, between you then, you've done quite a lot.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you kind of do anyway. Like when you're in film for this long, or you have to figure stuff out, is that you end up taking, especially independent stuff, man. Doing independent stuff, you're doing so many different roles because they just don't have enough money to be able to hire a bunch of individuals for each of those jobs. So you end up putting on a lot of different hats for independent film.
That's the thing, though. It's the finances. You haven't got the finance backing.
I mean,
so you've got to do that.
With regards to financing, I mean, you can go anywhere along the spectrum, right? And so, I mean, the Resident Evil Siren Song was basically zero budget, but I mean, they spent thousands of dollars getting costuming. It was a great film for having a zero budget, but when people say zero budget, it means that, I didn't get paid as an actor, stuff like that. None of the crew got paid, so we didn't pay the camera people. We pretty much did that because we were passionate about that game. And we wanted to make this film to not only showcase kind of what we could do as filmmakers, but also kind of tell some of this story that we grew up with.
This is open to both of you. Is there any places that you go to on location and you basically think, wow, that's all tied in and been a fantastic day? Do you go around away from your local towns? Are you visiting different locations away from homes as well, or are you just more local when filming?
Pretty much wherever you get to work. I live in the Los Angeles area, so over the years, most of my work has been locally up in Hollywood and, Burbank studios and all the different studios that are here in Southern California. The Crumbs we shot up in the Sacramento area, Northern California, Placerville, right? Yeah. And
yep. So that's actually pretty close to where I am, but it's pretty far from where Robert is.
Yeah.
That's
and
like 10 hours from you?
Yeah, about 8. Yeah, it is about 8-hour drive for me to get up there to Placerville. To Sacramento, maybe 7 hours, 6-7 hour drive. I'm going up in a couple of weeks. We're gonna shoot our next film. A couple of weeks, we're gonna start shooting, and that's up in the Sacramento area as well. So I got a drive coming up.
Wow.
So he definitely has moved, and that was an interesting set to work on. It was a little kind of like an oddball in. So you'll have to, when you watch the movie, it's kind of got some like a backwoods feel to it. I don't know if you've ever seen The Hills Have Eyes, but that's like the extreme version of this, right? So those people were just a bunch of kind of cannibals and people that were involved in inbreeding and just kind of lived completely off the grid. And occasionally people would come through and they would snatch them. These people are way more sophisticated than that. And so they've got, they're way less, like horrific than those people are. They kind of have a level of class to them. And they kind of have worked out this, two things. They've worked out like this scientific serum to kind of perpetuate their lives. So essentially they live longer than humans. So in that regard, they're kind of vampires. But then on the other side, they've also figured out a way to utilize business to draw in people to perpetuate this process. So they're like the smart version of the people from The Hills Have Eyes. They're not quite as creepy and stuff. They have to be able to blend in with civilization to some degree, but they're kind of up to some of the same stuff,
It's like you are living your dream from a youngster age and moving it forward and expanding your mind and creativity, isn't it?
Yes, I was literally just talking to somebody about that today, and I want to do more of it because honestly, there's a great deal of capacity for being able to create stuff that crosses over, like the patch, right? The patch is something that is relating to a fake thing that we created that is in the real world, right? And so I can take this patch, and I have actually, and worn it into another film. So it basically takes the thing and re-puts it into yet another fake world. And there's lots of opportunities to basically cross over. And like I was showing you the props, you were talking about the props is the same thing, right? Because that's a piece of the fake world that now I have in the real world. So you're almost like crossing dimensions to that end.
So touching back on like The Hills Have Eyes and stuff like that, I just see like The Wrong Turn type of movies and that type of thing.
Exactly.
Was that up in Virginia and all that? And it's like, if I ever touch base in the USA, I'm thinking I don't want to go to Virginia. Nothing against Virginia, but because I've seen that type of film as well. So you get that. Oh, I'd rather go elsewhere in the USA than go there first. So
right.
I think we've got that hand in mind where we run away with the act and the casting and the film and the background and everything. So you're portraying something there that can even though somebody's never been there, you're already got the mindset of going, oh, I'll go elsewhere first before I go to Virginia, or I'll do that as well, just from what you've seen watching a movie or a film as well. So it is great stuff that what you're actually doing is got that imagination from somebody that's actually sitting and watching what you're producing.
Here's another really strange detail to the Crumbs that Robert may not even know, but that was not the first time that I had been to that inn. I actually was introduced to that inn earlier when I was during my life as a filmmaker, when we were just doing stuff to try and make some money as a filmmaker, because you got to figure out how to try, and if you want to make this a thing that you do, you have to figure out how to make money at it. So I was involved in shooting a wedding there. So it's actually a place where people can have weddings and honeymoons, and they had what is that thing they do right after the wedding? The party. Anyways, the wedding party. Yeah, the reception. So that was all done over there, and I was involved in doing that. So when you see this, because it is, I didn't get to go into the rooms when we did that, and you start to realize it is kind of a creepy place. Like, I was kind of surprised after kind of seeing inside the places that was a place where people went at their wedding, but that is true. So remember that when you watch the movie, is that people had weddings and honeymoons in that place.
Yeah.
If I'm watching a few things over in England and that over the pond, and I'm seeing a lot of memorabilia coming up as well, in certain shows that's on there, and people are paying fantastic prices for memorabilia. I always find that's intriguing as well, that you could think, wow, just that piece of a set could be that thing that everybody wants in 20 years time. Again, it's just, I'm seeing certain stuff, and I'm just like, wow, it just blows my mind away when you're thinking, just amazing stuff out there that you're working alongside as characters as well. If you had a dream and you could be in one movie for yourselves, which movie would you put yourselves in? To each of you, what movie is your dream movie that you could be part of?
We got that question not too long ago, and I have the same answer. As I said, I play a lot of cops and detectives and things like that. And I just got through watching a show that is, I want to say it was shot in London, called Marcella. I don't know if you're familiar with it, on Netflix. And she was this detective who was really good at her job, but all the personal stuff that was going on in her life was just a mess. And she was she was good at work.
Yeah.
Personally, she was a mess. And I'd love to play that type of character who does really well, in the investigative realm of being an officer, but personally is just out there and has tons of skeletons in the closet and just has such a hard time with the rest of his life, but professionally he's just right on time,
Yeah, spot on with the profession, but in the background, an absolute mayhem.
Absolute mess, yeah. Kind of like.
So would you qualify that to be an anti-hero, Robert?
Anti-hero? I don't know.
Well, yeah, sort of like a hero that, he's a hero, but maybe he's not sure that he is a hero, kind of like a guy that, isn't necessarily fully the good guy.
Only the audience is in on it, right? Right. The people he works with don't see the side of him, but the audience does, So that's how. Yeah. So
I'll have to check that out, Robert. What is that? A current period, or is it set in a different time period or a decade?
Oh gosh, I have no, it could be set in any period. Usually, I'm always thinking. Now, I like period pieces, but normally I'm always thinking current when I'm thinking about something like that. I'm thinking current times, but I love period pieces.
I'll just recap on that question again for you, Shane. What would your dream part or movie be?
So, like I had said, I don't really consider myself an actor. Like with regards to Robert, I'm sure that Robert, with that character, would have a lot of opportunity at doing a lot of significant acting, trying to play this guy who's straight-laced and upstanding in front of certain people, and then over here being kind of somebody else. That's what he does as an actor anyway. Me, since I don't know that I really have acting chops, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to take the time that it takes to really learn something that deep, I have tried to literally typecast myself. I had mentioned NorCal Expendables before, literally like just a tactical team for film, right? I get to just be a badass character that gets to run around and do cool stuff on film. That's kind of what I would like to do and want to continue to do. The one thing, though, that I haven't gotten to do that I would like to do that's still in that category is a Western, like be a cowboy. Like that. That's cool. And that character kind of, goes through a lot of different things. Like if you think about Han Solo was basically a futuristic cowboy. I mean, that's what he was. Han Solo is a cowboy in the future. That's that kind of character. I just think that's really cool. And obviously I grew up watching that and really dig it. And so that kind of thing I think would be a lot of fun to do. So that typically is a period type film.
Yeah, and my character in the Crumbs kind of and a little bit that way, where I'm an officer, but I've got a little something else going on as well.
Yeah. So you had your dream job, is what you're saying, with the Crumbs.
I guess I've already had it.
Robert, I can see you in chips on the motorbikes.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
So I actually am going to be involved in a biker film coming up. So I mean, this vest right here is for a film that I'm going to be involved in where I play a biker. That works for me too.
I can see you doing that. Have you got a bike?
I do, yeah. I've got 2 bikes, yeah.
So there's your cowboy role. You're just on a motorcycle.
Yeah, but bikers aren't good guys, so they're definitely pretty much in the bad guy category. Like yeah,
right.
They are when it comes to movies, aren't they? So
yeah.
How many films have you guys done with going back to movies? How many films have you guys done with Craig?
Let's see. This is my 2. I've done 2 as 2, and we're getting ready to do a 3rd. I'm getting ready to do my 3rd with Craig and David.
And same with me, yeah. So I basically met Robert on the Crumbs. So me and him met on the Crumbs, and we have basically in some way or another worked on CRA films since then. In fact, we're both partners in CRA, so it makes sense that we'd be at least in some way involved in the films. But it doesn't guarantee us necessarily we're going to be on screen. In fact, I'm not at all on screen on the Crumbs. On Demon Fighter, I accidentally kind of make it on screen in that they had a actor who did great in auditioning, but when he made it to set to play the role, he, for whatever reason, could not do it. And because of that, I ended up hopping in and playing that character at the very beginning of the film. So
for the people tuning in as well, CRA is the entertainment side of it, and you've got you're in partnership with Craig with that. Are you both in partnership or just yourself, Shane?
No, we both are. Yeah,
we both are. We're both co-producers.
Yeah.
Excellent. How long's that been up and running, the CRA Entertainment?
A few years. I got involved a few years ago. Actually, while they were shooting Evil Down the Street, David and I go way back to junior college up in Northern California, and he invited me to the set of Evil Down the Street to just to say hello and to meet Craig, and then shortly after that they said, hey, if you're interested on hopping on board, you're welcome. So I jumped at the opportunity and I've been working with them ever since. So it's been about, I want to say about 3 years, right around there, since I've been involved.
See, Evil Down the Street, that's the one film I didn't realize until you guys, we were chatting before we came on to do the interview, how long that had actually been out for. Because I literally, it was only just recently, I suppose being in lockdown and everything else and being stuck at home and all the rest of it, I only recently came across Craig himself and obviously his pages on Facebook and the things that he shares. And that's how I came across that in the first place. And I was like, why don't I know about this? I've got to watch this. So that's how I come about watching that movie. And then that was it then. I added him and I was like, right, what else has he done? What else can I watch? And then obviously we got chatting. And then he was telling me about you guys. And that's how it came about that, you know, we got to talk to you about the job that you do today. So is this your full-time job, or do you have another job that you do as well?
I'm also a realtor, and you know, that's kind of a part-time thing for me, but I'm getting ready to focus a little bit more on investing in real estate investment. So I do that as well.
What about you, Shane?
So me, I do odd things. So I don't have what I would consider a business house sittings, but I occasionally house sit for people because I'm good with animals. So people figured that out about me. And so because of that, they started asking me if I would watch their places. And so I started doing that for people that I know. And I kind of just do that via word of mouth. But I too am more or less an investor and then do film. I don't like, unless you're doing commercial film, I don't know if anybody's a full-time film person. I mean, you're basically, you know, you're doing gigs. A film, you're like, you once the production's over, you know, your work is over until you do the next production. So that's kind of how it works. But that's pretty much how all my work is, except for maybe investing, because I watch it all the time. But I mean, I still don't necessarily actively do anything every day. I'm just kind of conscious of what's going on just in case I need to do something. That's the difference.
So as part of the CRA and all that, what platforms you go out on? Is it Amazon Prime? Is it, you know, are you going out on Netflix or anything like that as well? Anything you've been involved in any of them?
So Evil Down the Street and the Crumbs is on Amazon Prime. And I think it's also on Tubi.
I watched it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a pretty big streaming service. So that's pretty good. It would be cool to get something on Netflix. But, you know, since Netflix has blown up the way it has, it's a lot harder to kind of breach that barrier. But, I mean, I've watched some really bad movies on Netflix. So I think some people, you know, have connections that we just haven't developed yet, or got in before maybe they were being super critical or whatever. But there are some really bad films on Netflix.
Yeah.
We definitely make some films that are better than Netflix films, without question.
Yeah, I second that. I have watched some not so great movies, shall we say, on Netflix, and very disappointed. And I'm thinking, how have they got on here? Like, how have they got that rating? That must be a lie.
I feel as well as the time of frame of mind you're in when you actually start watching them, as if you want to watch that to the end as well. Because many a time I've gone back on to the Netflix and the Amazon and then started off from, you know, where I've been in a different frame of mind as well. So, all right, I will watch that now to the end. You know, so you get different types where it's not very often you can pause a film and go back to it, but it's actually where you left off from it sometimes as well. So that's the modern way forward at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure seems that way. Or for me, it's like I'll start to watch it a little too late and I'll fall asleep. And then I got to come back and take a look at it. But yeah, I do that all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I'll come back and watch this later.
You should get around to it. So what are you, Robert? If you've been on some anything else on Netflix, Amazon, any other shows that we can find you on?
No, I haven't. Just on Amazon Prime with the Crumbs. I was actually out of the business for a few years. We were talking about other jobs and that type of thing. And you know, as an actor, you're always looking for a way to support your acting habit. And some time ago, through a friend of mine, he had told me about this. Actually took me out of acting without me realizing it was happening. But I had an opportunity to do some work where I made some decent money, and I was a spokesperson, and I would travel around the country. It was at car shows, you know, like a car show, and they were in every city, you know, in the country. Yeah. So I would travel around. It's seasonal. I would travel around, say stuff from September to April. I would have a list of shows that I was going to work. Well, I took that job in order to supplement my income while I pursued acting. And what it ended up doing, you know, looking back, was it kind of took me away from acting, where it was a fun job. I got to go to New York and Chicago and Miami, and I went to Boston. And I went all over the country doing this job, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I got put up in 4-star hotels. They put me in suits and gave me a per diem. So I went out to dinner. When I was in New York, I'd go see Broadway shows, and you know, so I really enjoyed it. Well, you know, the temporary job turned into a 15-year job. And,
wow.
And it basically took me away.
They got the openings.
Right?
I'll be over.
Yeah, not now.
We're on our way, aren't we?
Yeah. So then when I got touched base with David, that's kind of what brought me back into acting. Right. So these last couple of films that I've done have been the first on-camera work that I've done in a number of years.
That's how they get you out, though, because I mentioned earlier about the commercial work, right? If you're doing commercial work, you're still doing industry stuff, but it's not like making movies, you know? Like you being a spokesman is in front of the camera, and you're being, you know, you're kind of still being an actor, but you're not really being an actor. So it's like a weird, it's like another weird piece of the industry that is kind of different, you know. It's not the same thing.
Well, the spokesperson stuff I did was live. It was, you know, it was at the actual location, and it was in front of a live audience. Like we, you know, picture a car up on a turntable going around, and it might be the new hot car for that company, and you're up there talking about it. Then afterwards, you answer questions about it. And it was more about the fun off the auto show floor for me than it was the actual job. It was having fun. Yeah. Having fun with my friends, going out and
the perks. The perks.
Yeah, the perks.
So for the folks tuning in, basically Craig's the filmmaker, and David, you mentioned there, you touched on the writing, director, actor as well, is he?
Yes. Yeah, he is. David's a pretty talented guy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
I think Craig has done some writing as well, and he also acts. So he's in. Yeah, you've seen that he's in Evil Down the Street, and you'll catch him in the Crumbs as well. But what really makes them different is that they are really well business minded. And so the one thing coming up through indie stuff that I've found is that a lot of people do not understand the concept of turning filmmaking into a business. And so a lot of times people finish the film and they don't get it distributed, or they don't do anything else with it. And as a result, they don't get any money for all of that work they put in. But then they go on and try to make their next film. And a lot of times they'll try and make, crowdfund for money to make films and things like that. And it just is really chaotic. And Dave and Craig figured out how to do the business side of making films that makes it sustainable, so that we can continue to make films like this, you know?
Yeah, they've done a good job.
So again, it's about the balance and having that right pie each, money and finances in the right section as well, to keep creating. Any little stories about the cameraman or anything like that, or anything you can tell us? Any little stories that shouldn't be out, or funny stories? Any mishaps that's happened?
See, Gary's got this thing going on the last day or so of he wants to know everyone's behind the scenes funny stories, stuff you're not supposed to talk about and things you're not supposed to tell us. For whatever reason, he's decided he wants to know what everyone's are the last day. He's like, right, I'm going to ask them.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like Dan Watt, the cameraman. I don't know whether he's there all the time and things like that. I'm just seeing little things tripping up and slipping and pulling the plugs out and stuff like that, and the power going off. And I'm seeing the things that people don't see. You know what I mean? So they're your stories, they're memories of what you've experienced over the years.
Nothing for me on camera. You have so many different experiences, but as an actor, one of my things I'm always worried about. Not always, but am I going to remember my lines? I'm going to forget my lines. So I can remember way back when I first started on stage, I was part of this touring show where the group, there was like 5 of us, and we actually had a station wagon with a trailer, and we would drive to schools and we had to, bring our set with us. We'd set it up and we'd entertain the kids. And one day I'm going through my bit and everything, and I just went blank. And I just told my acting partner, well, I got to go. And I just left the stage, left him out there all by himself. Those kind of things happen, where you just go up on your lines and you have no idea where you are. And what's really tough, I've done some Shakespeare as well. And when that happens in Shakespeare, you're gone. You can't make that stuff up. You either know it or you don't.
No, it's not possible. You just can't. See, that's why I couldn't do acting, because I wouldn't remember my lines. Gary definitely couldn't, because he definitely wouldn't remember his lines.
I have to write everything down.
He don't know what day of the week it is unless you tell him. No, seriously.
We're going to put
that's something I'm afraid of as well. And that's why I prefer to do background stuff or short things. Like literally this thing for Demon Fighter, I just hopped into because he was, as they were trying to do it, I realized that his short little line that he had to do and whatever action he needed to do, I could do. So I hopped into that. But it's not like what Robert does, remembering a bunch of lines, or like in Demon Fighter, Master John has a monologue. Man, like something like a monologue is intimidating for me. Like that just, for me, feels frightening. Like that would scare the crap out of me to know that I have to. And for Resident Evil, I was essentially written into the film. Like I literally am the character because I know the guy and he decided to write this stuff. And so they actually used my name in this film. And so I'm looking at the script and it's got all these lines, and I'm a fan of this thing as well. So what I basically negotiated is like, look, a bunch of people are fans of this stuff. A lot of it we can just reference. We don't need to tell them all of this stuff. We just need to allude to it. So that was the most lines I've ever had in a thing, and I succeeded in being able to cut them back a little bit, so it wasn't quite so much, because that was a lot for me to be trying to remember to say. And then the other thing is not just remembering it, because I think most people may be able to succeed in memorizing lines, but then you have to act like the character saying the lines. That's the other part. And in fact, when you're trying to act, it makes it harder for you to remember what it is you've memorized, because now you have to also do the action of acting like the person delivering those lines. So acting is, as far as I'm concerned, extremely difficult. Like I have a lot of respect for actors. It's a tough job, man.
It's a lot to remember, isn't it? It's like you've got to remember. It's like your cue to speak, to move, to do this, to be there, to do that. It's not just about your lines, is it? It's so much more to it. And because you guys are the type of films that you do as well, it's so much to remember for you, because you're doing all these extra jobs as well as doing the acting. And I really enjoyed, obviously I've only watched the one, but I will be watching the others too, especially the new one when that comes out. I'll actually watch it when it comes out, not a year and a half later, like the last one.
Right.
Yeah,
go ahead, Greg.
The new episode, when's the new film out that you've been working on?
Oh gosh, we're quite a ways. We're in post production, so rough draft is just starting to come out. So we have no idea when it's going to be ready, but it's quite a ways away.
I think Dave and Craig think that it's going to be come out in summertime, but I'm kind of on Robert's side on this. That it could be fall because it is pretty early stage. It depends. It's hard to say. You know, I mean. They have the rough cut out now, which means that they need to do still a lot of work perfecting where all the cuts are going to be. And then they need to do color correcting and sound. So that's a lot of work. And then they have to do the score for the film, right? So there's post-production still has quite a lot to do, but depending on the people and how quickly they are able to turn things around, I mean, it's possible that it could be out by summer, but probably more likely that it'll be out in the fall time,
And I've noticed, like on some of the things that you've been involved in, that when people either watch them on whatever platform, like the $2 or $3 or £2 or £3 over here in the UK as well, so that they're quite within reach as well if they're on them platforms as well. So anything that you've done in the past, go and watch it, folks, as well. So I'll be tuning in myself to some of them we've mentioned tonight as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, especially Crumbs, Gary. We've got to watch that.
Definitely
You've got watching down the street. You haven't watched that either yet, have you? How long does it take to produce these films? Out of interest, obviously, I kind of know when it comes to shows and stuff, but to a whole production like that, it must take a good amount of time to actually, from start to finish, to actually film.
It does,
well, it does.
And it should.
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
No. I mean, I was just agreeing. It does, and it should. I mean, like I said, I've done a lot of indie stuff, and a lot of productions will just think that they can go out and start shooting, and that is just a recipe for a disaster. Like, that's another thing that Dave and Craig do right, is that they will spend months on pre-production so that we have a good plan for when we get on set and know what we're supposed to do, because anybody who does filmmaking knows that there's going to be disasters on set. Like, things are going to go wrong. You're going to have to figure stuff out. But if you don't have a good plan in the first place, then the whole thing is a disaster from start to finish. You don't even know what you're doing when you get there, So they get a lot of stuff nailed down before we even make it to set. Like, we've had months of pre-production for this next film, and we start shooting next month. We have a pretty good idea of what days we're going to be doing what, and that's the way it needs to be. And then when we get on set, we're going to have to revise as necessary for whatever starts to go wrong as soon as we get there, which is almost bound to happen. So,
just so much work goes into it as well.
Oh yeah, all the work and planning for the, everyone has their part in the film, but your props, what's going to be needed for here, and the wardrobe, and all the things that come together with the film, raising the money to do it.
So much detail.
Yeah.
Like, how long have you been getting your studying for acting, Robert? How long have you been working on the script?
What script? The script coming up? What do you mean?
Yeah.
For a couple there, I have this next one coming up. I have about a 5. I have one scene, but it's a long scene. It's about 5 pages of dialogue between 3 people, and I started on that right around Christmas time, where I just started to ease into it, just get familiar with it, and now that we're getting closer, I'm putting in an hour plus a day, but I know that my scene isn't until the end of the shoot. So
yeah.
We're going to be together for 2+ weeks, and I'm not toward the end. So I still have over a month to prepare for one scene. And so
right.
I'm real confident that I'm going to be spot on. And it's just repetition. You learn your stuff, and you can just rattle it off. And that's what I work toward. I want to be able to just rattle that stuff off, so that when you're on the set, you're not thinking about your lines. You're thinking about hitting your mark. Sometimes you got to, your movement and the director of photography, you say, hey, when you say this line, can you just kind of slow up right now? I'm trying to catch the face of your acting partner over here. So I need you not to cross just boom. So you've got to throw that stuff in. So that's why you want to You want to have your dialogue just down to where you can just, you know,
you're picking up on the other people's characters as well with the timing.
Absolutely. So you don't want to necessarily learn how I'm going to say it like this, because your acting partner can give you a completely different feel. And a lot of times you don't know what it's like until you're on the set. That was one of the things about television in Hollywood that I found really challenging and nerve-wracking when I did a lot of it was, you know, you go to your audition and you might audition for the casting director. And then the casting director likes you enough to have you come back to audition for the producers and the directors. And then you're just in an office. And so you go back and you do that. And then let's say you get the job. Well, then you don't meet, you know, on a television show, you don't meet your acting partners, the people you're working with. They may be the stars of the show. And so they're established, they're there, and you come in as the guest, but you don't actually meet them until you get on the set. And they go, okay, let's rehearse this. And they're not rehearsing it for the actors, they're rehearsing it for the director of photography and the director to how they're gonna shoot it. And then once you rehearse it and they figure that out, well, then that's when you go away, they light it, and then you come back and go, let's shoot this. So you're actually meeting the star of the TV show. Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Okay, action. You know, and it's not impersonal, so it can be nerve-wracking. When you come in and you're the one that no one knows, you know. So yeah, I've had some tough days doing that.
Do you get the giggles on set and all that as well? Sometimes with the lines, sometimes you just look at each other and you just can't stop.
Yeah, you do. You start laughing. But I haven't done a whole lot of. Most of my stuff is serious stuff, so you don't. You know, you see some outtakes where they're laughing at each other because they're in a funny scene. But most of the stuff has been more serious. Where going up my lines is not funny, so I don't get a kick out of that at all.
So it must be interesting for you guys to do the type of films that you're doing in putting out there, because no disrespect, but there is a lot of rubbish out there. People think they've done a good production and it's a good film and it's a good story and they think they did a fantastic job. And you know, some people might think that, but then there is, like we were saying earlier, Shane, there is a lot of production out there that isn't that great. And you start watching it and you're thinking, man, I've just paid like whatever to watch this on, you know, say Netflix or whatever. And you're like 10, 15 minutes in, you're thinking, wow, why did I pay for this? Do you know what I mean? But then well, it's true. And then with you guys,
trial and error, Kaz, isn't it? As well, you move on to something naturally and go, I'm not going to touch that field again with a certain topic or a program or something. And you'd have a little go at something else. And I think you learn and evolve as well, wouldn't you, Kaz?
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, with the films that you guys put together, they're done so well.
I mean, that's also a matter of opinion, right? There's certain people out there that hate our films, and I mean, you can't really knock them for it. You can't really knock them for it too bad, because people watch movies for things that they're interested in seeing, and some people are interested in seeing the type of movies that we make, and some people aren't. You know, our film technically falls into the classification of horror film, but a lot of people, like, I'm a horror film fan, right? And so a lot of people, when they go to the movie to see a horror film, they want to see a lot of horror, you know? They don't, and a lot of, they'll overlook a lot of acting. They'll sometimes overlook story and things like that for that stuff. So in those instances, you know, if we don't give them enough blood, you know, they may hate our film, you know, even though the film technically is a good film, you know, and so I you know, like you said too, with regards to that, we got to stay kind of a little bit humble about the films as well, because I mean, a lot of those people think they made a good film, you know. So we got to be careful not to be the people that think that we made a good film and made a terrible film, you know, like that is possible as well. You can't get too wrapped up in thinking that you're doing the best stuff out there. You really almost got to think that, okay, so how can I make the next film better than this one? Because almost discard the last film as being crap and then move on to make a better next film. Otherwise you kind of get stuck, where you're at.
It's striving forward all the time, isn't it? It's achieving something and then making it 10 times better the next time. And so I understand where you're giving yourself goals in a way. So I understand where you're coming from, that it doesn't matter what you do and how good it is. You have that mindset that it can always be that little bit better.
And people are going to hate it no matter what, and people are probably going to love it no matter what. So no matter what, you're going to get some hate, you're going to get some love, and you've got to always think that you got to do better than you did last time. That's my mantra right there.
And you know what, guys? I want to say thank you very much. And on that note, I think that's the perfect note for us to finish on, because I think that's such a positive thing to put out there, especially with, like I said, what our event's about this weekend, and we're raising funds for mental health and suicide prevention. So to finish our lovely conversation that we've had with you guys on that positive note is just the perfect place to leave it. So I want to say thank you both so much for joining us and giving us your time. We really do appreciate it. We'll be looking out for Demon Fighter, and we'll be looking out. I follow Craig now, so it's fine. I'm sure I see it now.
You see it. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Good Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take care, Karen.
Thanks for having us on.
Guys.
All right.
Thank you. Take care both.